Hello and welcome to the POWERBOOST Meditation. Today, let us experiment with the theme, Think Without Thinking. Think without thinking. Our thoughts are generally influenced by what we see, what we hear. It's like based on our sensory perception of the external world. And when we say think without thinking, it's like for some time to allow our thoughts not to be governed by the sensory perception of the external world, but to allow for our inner being to express itself through our thoughts. It's like the more we allow this natural presence of the being to express itself. And so in meditation, when we allow for that expression to naturally take place, we just switch off the light of different senses and allow our thoughts to be influenced by the presence of the being. And as spiritual beings, because our reality, our true nature is that of peace, when we switch off our thoughts of the story, then our thoughts are naturally influenced or colored by peace, are naturally colored by unconditional love, are naturally colored by a sense of contentment, are naturally colored by a deep sense of inner happiness. And when we experience that, then it's like those thoughts are not just thoughts, but they are experience of eternal presence of the spiritual being. And these thoughts are thoughts which allow for us to get in touch with this inner realm, inner dimension. And then when we come into action, when we come into interaction, then whatever we do is all colored by that sense of inner quiet, inner peace. And so to think without thinking is to just let the conscious, the mind that always, chatters, comments or reacts, just for it to take a back seat for some time and to allow this inner being to naturally express itself. And then we are able to get in touch with the reality that doesn't judge, that doesn't compare, that doesn't compete. It's like our thoughts are then not colored by any of these vibrations, non-judgmental, unconditional, unlimited, eternal, in a natural way. And so then we don't find ourselves overthinking too much or over-analyzing too much, thinking about things which are not important. We don't find ourselves in that space. And then even if we are carrying out the same task, but naturally we are able to stay within our true self. So let us for a few moments experience thinking without thinking. So as we sit comfortably and relax ourselves, I realize that as an actor playing my role on the stage of life, I do have to think. I do have to keep the thinking hat on. But for a few moments, I just take off that hat so that I don't allow for any sensory perception of the world to influence my thoughts. I easily put a rest to whatever is happening all around me for a while. And as I hit the pause button, it allows me to experience the inner dimension. The inner dimension which is free, is not dependent on anything outside. The inner dimension, the dimension which belongs to the being, the soul, the eternal presence, the unlimited actor, the eternal traveler. I naturally get in touch with that sense of the self. Which is beyond any superficial thinking. I'm in touch with the deeper part of myself. The part of the self which is beyond the temporary labels or identities based in the story. And so I take my attention away from the story world into my eternal world. As I go above and beyond into my dimension. Here, there are no thoughts of the story. The story is getting enacted the way it should. The story is taken care of by itself. I don't need to think about it. I'm just here with myself, with my spiritual family of spiritual beings, in my home of eternal light, in the presence of the divine. There's no need to think here. I just feel the presence. And in this feeling lies the eternal experience of myself as this being of consciousness. The being that doesn't need to prove itself, a being that doesn't need to create any other identity. a being that is full, doesn't need anything from the story happening down below. I just pay attention to the reality of this being, this eternal being. I experience my thoughts gently moving into feelings based in the truth. And I begin to feel the inner peace. I begin to feel deep love for every creation. I begin to accept everything and everyone the way they are. Don't feel the need to comment or criticize or judge anything or anyone. I'm easily able to separate the soul and the role. I just have this pure love for the soul. As we all deeply experience, we realize that this is our truth. This is where we live. This is our home. This is our life. We soak in the presence of the one who always stays in this clarity, whose mind is always saturated with these feelings. And allow myself to soak in the presence of the divine. I'm in this deep space of being myself, completely beyond the story, completely beyond the role, the act. Here I am just absorbed in the silence. And gently, in this moment, I make a return journey back to the story world, journey back to the stage. And as I journey back, I come back with this clarity that this This play is just meant for me to express my inner being. And so, whilst coming into actions, I hold on to this state deeply, firmly, easily, and naturally, constantly. I think without thinking, just being myself. Om Shanti.